Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Francis. Thanks for joining me. Our tutorial today is how to build a periodic table. So it's time to build our periodic table. So let me tell you a little bit about the materials that you're going to need. Let me first show you actually. We're going to be building the skeleton of a periodic table so that you can color code and label and make this periodic table sort of like a map for all of the elements. And we'll be using this periodic table throughout the year here. So this is an important assignment for us. Okay, so that's what we're going to be creating. Things that you're going to need. First of all, if it's possible to get a blank piece of paper, this is printer paper. If you don't have a blank piece, you might want to try going through some of your junk mail and seeing if you've gotten a letter, and often the back side is blank. So you could use the back side of an 8.5 by 11. So that might be a tool that you could use. Okay, next thing that you're going to need is a ruler or a straight edge. So we have one video where we created these straight edges with a 90-degree angle on it. That's what I'm going to use for this. But you could also use rulers like these. All sorts of rulers I have here. Okay, all of those would work well. But I'm going to put mine aside for right now because I'm going to do it with the homemade tools. Okay. So we said paper, we said a straight edge. Again, we said ruler, and for some of you, you're going to use your homemade ruler. And so this is my own homemade ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can check out the tutorial on how to make your own ruler, and I'll put that in the comments for you. So that is going to be the tool that I'm actually going to use when I made this skeleton. I actually used a ruler just like this. So it is totally possible. All right, the last thing that I think would be helpful is to have a periodic table. And I have a printed one here, but really all you need to do is maybe have it up on your screen and available so that you can reference it. It will help us to kind of visualize where the pieces belong. And so I'm going to put this aside. And again, this is just so that we can use it as a reference. Now, one of the reasons that we're building our own periodic table is that when you build something, it really helps us with our long-term memory. So if I just look at this, it's not really going to sink deep in. But when I start to create something like this, I actually have a really good recognition of it. I can remember where pieces were, and it really is going to help. So let's get ourselves started. This process is going to be very interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our piece of paper here, and we're going to make it landscape. And the first process that we are going to do is we're going to mark off 1/4 of an inch down like this on this side and down like this on the other side. That's going to actually be our margins. Now, with my homemade ruler, I actually don't have a 1/4 inch mark, but I have something that's very close, and that's my 0.34 mark. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on this side of the paper here, and I'm going to use a pencil. By the way, I should have noted that you need a pencil, and doing this in pen is probably not a good idea. Um, I used Sharpie afterwards and made it look really nice. Um, please use a pencil. Do yourself a favor. Okay, so I'm going to line this piece of paper up. I want to make sure that my edges are even all along, so I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make a little tiny tick mark. Actually, I'm going to do this because I have 0.34. I'm going to do mine just on the outside of it, so it's just left. That'll give me 0.4. Okay, and then I'm going to move the paper down, and I am going to line it up again. And again, I'm going to make that mark just to the left. Okay, and then I will take my straight edge, and I'm going to line it up with the edge of the paper. And I am going to make it go just on the other side so you can see my marks are showing. And I've got to make sure that's all the way straight up here. And I'm going to draw my first line 1/4 inch down like that. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side of the paper. So I might actually just turn my paper around, and I'm going to again line up my homemade ruler with the edge of the paper. I'm going to mark just to the left. Now, if you're using a regular ruler, you can just use that 0.4. I actually think that this might, I don't know. I'm not sure which one's easier. Do whatever works best for you, I guess. And now I'm going to take my straight edge again. I like to do my paper sort of on an angle. It feels most comfortable. I am right-handed. I kind of wanted to be left-handed. People who are left-handed are often very creative. I'm going to line those 2 marks up. I'm going to make sure my edge is even along this side, and I'm going to go ahead and make my 1/4 inch mark. All right, so I've got a 1/4 inch marked on each side. Okay, the next step that I am going to do, it's going to take a little bit of effort, but we're going to be just fine. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We need a mark, a line that goes straight across that's 6 inches down on the page. Okay, now with my homemade ruler, I don't have a 6 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this is I am going to take my 5.5. That's most of the way. And I'm going to make a mark here. And now I am going to find on my ruler, I have a 0.53. That's practically a 1/2 inch. So a 1/2 inch is from the top of the page to my first crease. And now I am going to add that 1/2 inch. So 5.5 plus a 1/2 inch gives me 6 inches. And now I'm going to do the very same thing farther along on my page. Oh, that is a little bit hard to see. Okay, so 5.5, I added a 1/2. So there's my 6 inch mark. And I'll do that again. I'm going to line my paper up so that I've got, let's see, it might actually be easier to fold the paper, put it over the top. Yep, that is easier. I could have done that and gone like this and got my 1/2 inch. Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry, my 5.5 inches. Let's do that. Okay, and then we need to add our 1/2 inch to those. So that's this right here. And I'm going to add my 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go just barely on the inside, and I'm going to double check my line here because I think I was a tiny bit off. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase my 5.5 inch marks, and I've got my 6 inch marks. I'm going to line my straight edge up. I'm going to get those to go through the 2 points. Now listen, this is not always easy. You are going to make mistakes. That's why we are using a pencil. So if mine doesn't work out, I'm going to remeasure and I'm going to fix it. So here we go. This is nice and even here. All right, there I am. I'm on both here and I have a nice straight edge here. And see, already using my eraser. Okay, now I've got my 6 inch mark. And where I kind of went off, I'm just going to do a light erase there. Beautiful. Okay, so this 6 inch mark is actually going to be this line down across the bottom here. Okay. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to use our ruler and we need to make a 4.25 inch fold. Okay. And then we're going to subtract out about 1.0 inches. So we need another line that goes across that's at the 3.5 inch mark. Okay. I'm going to look and remember how I'm doing. I'm going to double check. So here I go. Just going to make sure I have this in the right spot. So there's my 6-inch. There's my 6 inches. Okay. And then I'm looking at, here's my 3. I'm sorry, I should say that again. I said 3.5. I meant 3 1/4. I need a 3 1/4 mark. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take my 4 1/4 and I'm going to fold my paper at the 1-inch mark, because if this is 4 1/4 and I take out 1 inch, I now have 3 1/4. So from here to the edge of the paper is 3 1/4. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to take the paper or my ruler, my homemade ruler. I'm going to fold it over. Okay, and again, remember, I have from here to here is 4 1/4, and I need 3 1/4. And since this is about 1 inch, I'm going to remove that. Okay, so now I'm going to start my line here. I want to hold that paper down. Okay, there we go. And it doesn't matter if I erase these or not, but I'm going to, just for my own help. Okay, so now what I want you to see is we have the bottom line and the top line. Okay, and I'm going to look at mine here and I'm going to remeasure. Now listen, if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. I'm just trying to show you that this is actually about 3 1/4 and this is at 6 inches. So we're doing well so far. Okay, thanks for hanging in there with me. Now, one thing that you're going to note is that the widest part of the periodic table is 18 squares. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, with the paper in landscape with our nice horizontal lines, we're going to find the halfway mark by folding this paper over. And I'm going to make a nice neat crease. Make sure that your edges up here at the corners are just as perfectly matched as you can. I've folded it over and I'm going to open it up, and you're going to see I've got a middle line where these 18 squares need to go. So let me grab my straight edge, and I think I might use the paper. I can guarantee that the paper is straight. And then I'm going to fold the paper over and kind of push my straight edge in towards the paper, fold it over, and that gives me a really nice line. So where do I need to draw my line to make the halfway mark? I'm actually just following that crease. I'm going to do that again because I got off a little bit. And I'm going to go right down the middle between the two horizontal lines. And now I'm going to have 9 squares on the left and 9 squares on the right. Okay. Okay, the next step was the one that I found the trickiest with this drawing and using my homemade ruler. So I'm going to tell you, if you're using a regular ruler, you need to make each box, and we're going to make 9 boxes on this side and 9 boxes on this side. They're each going to be 0.68. I'm sorry, let me say that again. Let me make sure I have that right number. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.60 inches wide. Let me say it again. The 9 are going to be 0.60. So looking at this with the regular ruler, you can see they're just over the halfway mark. Okay, so 0.6. We don't have 0.6 here, so what I ended up doing for this is I used my 0.53. I tried using the 0.68. It was just too big. Okay. I ended up with too few pieces here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper here and I'm going to line it up so that the line is nice and even on the left here. And I'm going to line that up. So do you guys see how I've got it lined up here and lined up here? And I am going to make this slightly bigger than 0.63. So here's the edge of my page. I'm sorry, 0.53. And I'm going to go kind of right off to the edge. That's 1. I'm going to try it again. That's 2. And my goal is to get 9 spots here. Let's see if I'm doing it. Listen, folks, if it doesn't work out perfect, I'm going to erase it and I'm going to try it again. But this was my trickiest part, or the trickiest part for me, I should say. So you can see I'm looking down. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I think it's going to work. Okay, so let me make sure I have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yay, that's fantastic. And listen, if it didn't work out exactly right for you, just go ahead and do a redo. It's not a big deal. Okay, you will get it. All right, now I'm just going to use my straight edge, and I'm going to go just so that my pencil's right on top of that line. There's 1, and I'm going to make the vertical lines. Okay. All right. I made it through what I think was the trickiest part. Oh, I think you guys might be hearing my dog in the back. I've been making videos all morning, and my dog is missing me. My dog is an English cream golden retriever. He has very white hair with some like biscuity colors in it. And he's huge. He's a puppy. He's 70 pounds already. And he doesn't quite realize that he's 70 pounds. He actually thinks he's a lap dog. I think that's kind of funny. Okay. So now I've got 9 on this side. So I came up with an idea how to get the 9 on the other side. So I'm actually going to go back. So now these look pretty good. And I'm going to kind of make these as good as I can. I might even go through with my Sharpie. So instead of having to remeasure those tricky lines, and I think I am going to do that, I'm going to just tilt my paper, and I'm going to, as carefully as I can, use my Sharpie marker here. Or you could use a Crayola marker or something that's darker. Or you could just use your pencil and use a heavy hand on your pencil. I'm going to go ahead and do this because instead of having to remeasure for the other side, what I am going to do is, can you see it? Okay, you might need to put it up to the window and look through, but I can very faintly see the marks. Now I'm going to flip it this way actually. So I'm on this side. I can very faintly, I think you can even see that on the video, see those marks. Now I am not going to do that with my Sharpie. I am going to use my straight edge and line that up. There's my first one. Here we go. 1. And folks, one of the things that you want to do when you're doing these kinds of drawings or sketches is sometimes you just got to sit back and look at it and say to yourself, is that looking right? Okay, and if it's not, then you make a change. Like I'm not, yeah, that's straight. Okay, I'm going to look back. Okay, so now with that paper folded over, I can use those dark lines to make my other 9. And I am going to count them in just a minute because I do not want to move on from here if I don't have 9. Okay, so open it back up. 9 on each side, so 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Ah, that's wonderful. Okay, I might even, just because I am such a, I love symmetry. It's one of the reasons I like chemistry. If you like chemistry, there is often symmetry, not always, but if you have a good eye for symmetry, it then actually helps you find where those asymmetrical patterns are, or lack of pattern, I guess you could say. All right, now I've got 18, and what I want to show you is we have the vertical lines for this section right here. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is, okay, we just drew those vertical lines. We're going to fold the paper over. We did that. Okay, we're going to make 4 rows. So I'm following my directions. I literally had to write down directions for this. Okay, so now we're going to use the 0.68 inches on our ruler, our homemade ruler, and this is actually the size exactly what we need. So on my homemade ruler, 0.68 inches was when I cut the 1.3 in half. And so again, I hope that you've noticed, but I try to make 2 marks so that when I use my straight edge, I line those 2 marks up. So to make this nice and even, look at how I've lined this up, and then I found another line where I could line it up so that I know that the paper isn't kind of crooked like that. So I'm going to do this here and here, and I'm going to make my first mark here. All right, and then down here, so I don't even have to move the paper, I'll make my second mark. I think I just moved it over a titch here. Okay, so I'm going to make my second mark down here. Hold that down. And then I'm going to line that line up to make my next one. All right. Do I have a good spot for that? Let's hope so. Oh, yeah, I'll use the edge of the paper. Okay, here's my second row. Right now it looks like a column because I've got the paper in the portrait position. And now I've got these last 2. So do you see how I've made the lines that line up here? Okay, so I've got to make 3 marks for 4 rows. And now I will draw across. So I like these straight edges that you make because they're longer than, because they're on the diagonal, they actually are longer. So I'm going to go from the 1/4 inch mark, and I've got this coming across here. That's 1. Oh, poor puppy dog. I'm not sure if you can hear him, but he is pining for me right now. His name is Yuki. His official name is Murphy Yuki-san Fluffy Francis. We had a hard time agreeing on a name. I wanted to call him Diesel because he is kind of like a diesel truck. Okay, got our 4. I looked at it. It's not perfect, but it is darn close. So I'm going to do myself a favor and make some nice dark lines here. This is not necessary at this point. However, I think it helps us to see that periodic table coming to life. And I'm very steadily, it's easier to make a straight line, although I'll probably mess up here, in the vertical because our arm can move a little more freely in one direction. All right. I've never done one of these how to draw tutorials before, but it's kind of fun. All right, so we've got that bottom half, okay? And now the next thing that we're going to do is get our ruler. And I need to find that 1 inch. So if you're using a regular ruler, you're going to just line up 1 inch here. But we're going to make some small horizontal lines that are about 1 inch. So what I'm going to do is put my ruler underneath. I'm going to bring it to the 1 inch mark, and I'm going to overlap it, and I'm going to push this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm trying to make the top. Okay, so you're going to see that this is 1 inch down and this is 1 inch down. There are only 2 elements in the first period, which goes across. A period is a row. And what I'm going to do is just make a nice little 1 inch mark here. And this is going to give me a place to shoot for. Okay, this is where having the periodic table up on your computer might be very helpful. So you can see I've made a mark at about 1 inch. Okay, Now the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to use the vertical lines that I made in this main body here to continue to draw up. So what I'll see is on my periodic table, the tallest line or the tallest column here is group 1, and there's only one element in it. So I will take my pencil and I'm going to line up to that 1-inch mark with my straight edge. You guys, I love these 90-degree straight edges. I think it's kind of a cool trick. Okay, and with the Sharpie marker, it doesn't look as exact, but I can very slightly see my pencil mark underneath it. So maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. I think it's fine. And I've got my first one here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the paper, and if you recall, we used the 0.68. Let me see where that's at. Okay, that's here. And that's the height of these. So we should end up with 7 rows here. They look like columns right now because I've got my paper tipped. But 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 5. I'm using that 0.68 again. Okay. That's 6 and that's 7. And so that looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to just draw that. I think I just need the top one for right now. And I'm going to draw that. And I'm going to kind of do like this because on my periodic table, so here's hydrogen. I might make even an H in there. Then lithium will be here, and next door needs to be beryllium. So I can erase this little extra line I have here. And now I'm going to use that vertical line again. Bada bing, bada boom. And here we go. And now I've got hydrogen, lithium, beryllium. Okay, now look at this isn't any wider than 2 columns in this section. And so I will make my line here. That looks nice and even. And right across here. So using my periodic table maybe up on my screen, I'm using a paper copy. Hydrogen, lithium, beryllium. This is sodium and magnesium. You'll know all of these names before you know it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple of these element names. I'm doing this purposely in pencil. You'll see that your instructions later on are going to instruct you about some particular colors, but I'm using these so that I kind of have a guide when I'm creating the rest of the table. So we're actually really moving on here pretty good. Okay, the next step is we need to make this portion here. And so we're going to make the last column or the last group 18 first. And we're going to use that same process. We're going to use our straight edge and we're going to draw the line all the way up here. This is a riot, you guys. It's really fun to be building. And I think when you're done building this, you are going to really remember where things are at. You are going to be shocked as we go on this year to see how incredible this table is. There are so many visible patterns in it, but there are a ton of hidden patterns in it. And when you start to see those hidden patterns, it really is quite amazing. So be on the lookout for those hidden patterns. I'm just doing a little bit of erasing here. This is going to end up being my helium up in the top. And I need to get those 3 rows in there. So again, I'm going to use my 0.68. I'm going to turn my page. You guys don't be afraid to turn your page to make these marks. So I'm going to go from down here. I'm going to try to get this as lined up as I can. And here's my first 0.68. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the periodic table has 7 rows in it. We refer to those rows as periods. I don't think you'll hear chemists calling them rows very often. I think you're going to hear them call them periods. That looks a little uneven to me, so I'm going to go slightly up. Okay, so now I have helium and the rest of my noble gases, neon, argon, then we've got krypton, not kryptonite, xenon, we've got radon, and newly named oganesson. All right, fantastic. Now, just a little section here. So this section of the periodic table, we call this the P block, like from here to here, it's 6 wide. It is 6 wide on purpose, and we want to create, I just noticed that my video tanked out on me. All right, here we go. So this part right here, I'll say it again, is 6 wide. So from boron to neon, 6 columns, okay? And so what we're gonna do on here is we're gonna count 6 columns over. So this is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so I'm gonna make a little mark here, and then I'm going to use my straight edge. Oh, that's not my straight edge, that's my ruler. I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of estimate it needs to be as high as neon. And I might have to like mess around with that, but I'm going to kind of like do that. And then I'm going to try to take neon, the top of neon. There we go. Oh, that looks a little off to me. Okay, let's fix that. And I'm going to make a line across here. And I don't think I actually met all the way up. So I'll just re-put that back on my line and get that to the top here. And then I'm going to use the subsequent lines that I had already created as my guide. Boom. Boom. It feels good to do something that is like not on the computer. I don't know if that makes sense for anybody, but I like having my hands on things. I like moving about. It's kind of refreshing. I feel like I've been on the computer day and night. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's the 6th row. I'm sorry, 6th column or 6th, 6th column I'll call it. All right, let me get that lined up here. You know what, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna flip my tool over so I can kind of line it up here. I have a better chance at getting a straight line here. All right, there we go. Fabulous. Okay, so in this corner we should have boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Underneath that is aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, and chlorine. Okay, now I'm putting those in because I want to make sure I had the right number. And then if you want, you can go ahead and do some of this outlining. I don't know, it's very satisfying to see the lines come together. And it actually is looking like a pretty darn good periodic table, folks. This is kind of awesome. All right, construction, building, drawing, writing. These are all really good tools for memory. And since the periodic table is really at the heart of a lot of what we're going to study, we're going to be learning about all of these elements and the atoms that make up these elements. Ooh, that's not perfect, but I'll make it work. That looks pretty darn good. But we're going to be learning all about these. And so knowing where they are on the periodic table is going to be super duper helpful. Okay, we only have one other area to deal with on the periodic table. And this can be a tricky area. This area that I'm about to build looks like an island. It really belongs inside the periodic table. And in reality, the periodic table is super long, like really long. And the problem is most people use 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And when we make the entire periodic table on there, it's really difficult to read. So what they've done is they've taken out a portion from the periodic table right here, and they've put it down below. And these elements, these are our inner transitional metals. are down below so that we can actually read the squares for the periodic table. So I'm going to make a note here that I think could be helpful for you. If you find CS here, go to the right and we've got BA, and then francium is here and radium here. Okay, just as a note, this is number 56 and this is number 88. And then what we'll do just to help ourselves out later on when we actually do the rest of the assignment, the color coding and the labeling, I am going to write number 57 through 71. These are going to be drawn down here. And then number 89 through 103 is down here. Okay, and when we get into some more complicated stuff about electron configuration later this year, you will see how important that is. One last thing is I'm going to put hafnium right here on the other side of that, and I want you to see that that is number 72, and Rutherfordium underneath that is number 104, so it just picks right up with the numbering, the atomic number. Okay, to do this, most periodic tables, when they draw this out, they do them sort of to the side. But I thought in order to make this easier on ourselves and use the vertical lines that we already have, you're going to see that I lined mine up so that they follow those same lines so we can just use our straight edge. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so we're going to start our line 3 in. So 1, 2, 3, and you can see that we're going to extend that line out. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. So what we will do here is we're going to extend the line down, and it's going to go from here to here. So I think I'm going to start with those two, and then we will make our rows from there. So let me get my straight edge. So 1, 2, 3. So I need to, let's get that lined up so it's not off. Okay. It's not perfect, folks, but it's pretty darn good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch down. Now, listen, you could measure that 1/4 of an inch down if you wanted, but I'm just going to make a substantial line, and I am going to erase some of that line later on. So then we need to go all the way over 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you should have one column left over. And I better do it this way, folks. Okay, line that up. Line that up. I do think that the Sharpie can be misleading. That is one thing. I think it was easier to follow the lines with. Okay, so I think it was easier to follow the lines with the pencil. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that I have captured my 2 marks here. And then I'm going to line my paper up. Oh, let me show that to you on this edge with my straight edge. And I am going to mark between those 2 lines. So that's going to be the top. And if it helps you, you can erase these little lines right here. We actually can erase the 1/4 inch lines on the sides that were our margins earlier. Okay, now I do need my ruler, and we've said a few times that each one is going to be 0.68, and I just need 2 rows. So let's actually go like this. I'm going to try to line that up. And I'm going to say 0.68 right there. And actually, I'm going to go on the side so it's the same on both. And 0.68 here. And then I'm going to line that up. And I'm going to try to look underneath the paper. Yep, that lines up very nicely. Oh, you guys cannot see what I'm doing. Oh, boy. Okay, so I lined that up. And I'm going to line it up again at the top with the mark I already made. Okay. And then down here, I'm also going to make sure that it's lined up. It's that nice 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to make a width of 0.68. Okay, so now I've got this line and this line. That'll be my first row, and then here's my second row. And I will use my straight edge. You guys, we're doing pretty good. I know that this is a long video, but by the time you're done, you're going to know this periodic table like you wouldn't believe. Okay, so here are intertransitional metals. Beautiful. And I've got my 2 rows. And now I think if we've lined this up well, I'm going to turn this on its side. And I'm just going to use the vertical lines that we've been using all along here. And I think that Sharpie might be causing me some trouble. So I don't know, you guys. You can tell me later what you think. Be nice, of course. Okay, so we should end up with 15 groups here. And I'm trying to get them as even as possible. Here we go. Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's right on that middle line like we had used before. We did pretty darn good, folks. Okay, I'm going to pull my paper up. I am going to count these in the end just to double check. And, oh boy. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Now, I should have mentioned this, like when we started the video, maybe I'll put it in the comments. Don't be afraid to pause the video, rewind if you need, fast forward if you need, you know, like why I'm doing this kind of stuff. Here we go. Perhaps I should count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Fantastic. Okay, so another name for this is the F block. You're going to find out there's actually 14 across in the F block, and that the pieces on the end, number 71 and 103, really belong over in this block, which we call the D block. But that's for another time and another day. Electron configuration. It's one of my all-time favorite topics. Really do enjoy it. And then if you go on to like organic chemistry, you'll get to learn about not only electron configuration, but hybridization and how the electrons overlap and make these really cool shapes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so just for clarity's sake, on our periodic table, and I'm going to show you how I did that on this one as well. Here's my little island, our intertransitional metals. These ones, this entire row is called the lanthanides, and it's number 57. So do you see how we had 57? It really belongs here, and it would like push the periodic table out. And then we've got AC number 89, so that's for this row. So one of the things I like to do is number the rows, and again, we don't really call them rows, we call them periods. So this is period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, period 5, period 6, and period 7. And since LA is number 57, it belongs up here. This is really still period 6. And then this one down here is really period 7. Okay, now there you can see I started making some other annotations on here, and the instructions will lead you through that. But I am going to just kind of label mine the periodic table of elements. And you might want to do yourself a favor and make a key here. I would do it in pencil first. There's going to be an instruction about that. And then you can go ahead and fill this in. It does recommend that you use pencil, and I would recommend that first. And then once you're sure of where you're at, you can use other tools to color, and you could use pen or marker or color pencils or crayons. And for our colorblind folks, you might need to use some symbols. So feel free to do that. I've had kids successfully do that a lot. Lastly, there are a bunch of tools and resources, informational resources, like copies of the periodic table. There is the entire periodic table handbook that is available to you. There is a link in this assignment to that. And yeah, have fun building your periodic table. All right, thanks for hanging with me in here, folks. I hope you have a great day.